reporting for TTN-HD Production Live, here with actor Mark Beltzman. What inspired you to become an actor?
Oh, geez. I suppose being a class clown in the beginning. And I also play the tuba, and somebody asked could they rent my tuba for a Lazy Boy chair ad. And I said yeah, and then they said, do you want to be in it? And I said sure, and that was 30 years ago, and I haven't done anything else since.
Do you still play the tuba?
I do. I play it a lot, actually. I play in an orchestra once a month for a show called Mortified, where adults read from their journals and diaries when they're teenagers. And I have my own show called Tuba Czar, and I am the czar of the tuba, and I invite other artists to come play their music. They just have to write me a tuba part. So that's a lot of fun, and I have a lot of very talented friends who happen to be musicians as well, and it's an exciting time.
How do you find transitioning from music to acting back and forth?
I don't think there is a transition. I think they're both very related. I mean, being an artist, being an improviser, and especially when I get to do both, which is a lot of fun. Like I was the tuba player in the polka band with John Candy in Home Alone, and the Murray brothers had a show called Sweet Spot where they all played golf around the country, and they wrote me a part, and I got to be on House, and I played tuba and died, and so whenever I get to do both, it's a lot of fun.
What have been your highlights of your career? Some of your favorite things?
This interview. It's totally a highlight of my career. The pinnacle, I think, actually. I've been very fortunate. I've made my living as an actor for 30 years. I co-starred in movies like Mo Money with Damon Wayans and Billy Madison with Adam Sandler, and been you know, a working actor for a long time, and I'm very fortunate. So, go ahead.
And what have you learned from being an actor and working with so many different people?
Really is, especially being an improvisationally trained actor and working at Second City in Chicago for many years. And I was a founding member of Improv Olympic, which is now referred to as I.O., because the Olympic Committee sued them. Just letting it happen to you rather than you trying to make it happen. And if you see it, you believe it, it's real to you. We see it, we believe it, and it's real to us. And Aristotle says the poet cannot impact on others who is not impacted on himself. So when you're impacted on by the material, then you can impact on others, and that's kind of what motivates me.
What is the importance of Second City training or comedy and improv training for actors?
It's the greatest gift ever. A lot of my friends to this day are people I met during the time at Second City, and it's sort of like Ringling Brothers Clown College. You know, you learn on your feet in front of an audience. You learn how to write, direct, perform, and it's just a amazing tool to be able to be in the Second City family, first of all, to have that kind of training, and it is, you know, shaped comedy as we know it in America today. And one of the guys in particular who was a guru to all of us, his name was Del Close, and he died on March 4th, actually, in 1999. But he was the acting coach for the Not Ready for Primetime Players on Saturday Night Live. And everybody who's anybody in comedy, especially at Second City, studied with him, like Harold Ramis, John Belushi, Jim Belushi, John Candy, Bill Murray, and the list goes on. And he's pretty much responsible for shaping comedy as we know it today, because most of the directors, actors, producers, and writers all either studied with him or were influenced by him in one way or another.
What do you have coming up next that we can look out for?
I'm shooting a film next week. It's sort of it's not a short film, it's not a full-length feature. I would call it a featurette. It's probably about a half an hour, 40 minutes, and it's called The Company, and I play a mafia guy who is being bamboozled, and then I turn the tables on them in the end. So that's fun. And last year I did a musical. It was called Reanimator the Musical, based on a horror film that was made in 1985, directed by Stuart Gordon, and Stuart Gordon also directed this production. And it stars George Wendt and myself and 8 other really talented people. And we're going to be mounting that again here in Los Angeles in about 8 or 10 weeks. Then we're going to the New York Music Festival, and then on to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland for the month of August.
And what advice would you give to upcoming actors?
To just work. I tell my students all the time, the only difference between a working actor and a non-working actor is one's working and one's talking about it. That's the only difference. So you just got to get off your butt and get in there and work your craft. It's like any other occupation, and I like to compare it to an Olympic athlete who trains and trains and trains for a millisecond of fame, or, you know, doing what you do best, and you train very hard just to get that one little piece perfect when the time comes.
What was it like working with John Candy?
John Candy was just a magical blessing beyond belief. He was like a kid. He always wanted to play. Within 5 minutes of being on the set of Uncle Buck, I had him doing the 3D House of Beef from SCTV into the camera. And he was just a lot of fun, and you could just look at him and say anything, and you'd be improvising a scene, and he'd love to improvise and play. And when we were shooting Home Alone, he was talking to John Hughes, who was the writer-producer, and Chris Columbus, and it was Chris's first film he directed. And they were talking, and they said, "Mark, come on over here." And they knew I was a Second City actor, and they said, "Well, we're trying to come up with something for this scene in the back of a van." So I, in the conversation, came up with all this material, and then John Candy only had 1 day to shoot that scene. So we were going into hour 20 of shooting that day. So we were shooting for 20 hours, and they were setting up for the 4th meal of the day, and it was just getting way too late. So they said, "Okay, forget all that stuff. We're just going to do a 2-shot on John Candy and Catherine O'Hara." And then John did all the lines and the story that I had came up with on camera. And then after they yelled cut, he goes, "Hey, sorry, kid, I stole all your stuff. I hope you don't mind." And I was just like, that was great. It was so exciting. And it was such an honor to have John appreciate what we had come up with all together, that he would put that in the movie, and that's what ended up being in the film. So he was really a lot of fun to work with, and he was a great guy.
And what's the best place to follow you online or check out your work online?
Facebook, of course. I post everything on Facebook, markbeltzman.com, and I have, you know, everything's on YouTube these days, so there's tons of stuff, and you can Google my name, and there'll be hundreds of options of places to go and things to see if you want to look it up.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, and best of luck with all of your upcoming projects.
Well, thank you, Katie. It's nice to meet you, and I appreciate you taking the time to interview me.
I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN-HD Production Live.